Morning. Good morning, Lomax and guests. It is good to be here with you this morning. Would we all bow our heads in prayer, please? Good morning again, my Lord. It is so good for us to have come together this morning to celebrate in our ministry. Lord, we ask that you will bless each and every one who thought it not robbery to come out here today to participate in this ministry. Give the leaders, Lord, the knowledge and the courage to do what it is that you have planted on their hearts to do. Keep us that Lomax and this community be moving forward in your name. Keep us in your care. Bless us and bless us and bless us. If you don't think you've been blessed, aren't you here? Did you wake this morning? So just think about it. These are the blessings I ask in your name. Amen.
Speaker this morning is Steve Gurney. He is the originator of the Positive Aging source book. And that is resource that we have to give us information to enhance the quality of our lives as we age. If the Lord blesses us to be here, we cannot afford not to know what he shares with us. His organization is at least 30 years old. And we age and we just sort of take it for granted. But I'm so happy that you all are here today. I'm sure that what we shared with you today will prove to be invaluable. And if you don't need it now, you may need it for yourself later. But keep your eyes and ears open as we age, because a lot of people are in denial about where they are in the aging process. So without further ado, introduce Steve Gurney.
Right. Okay. And I like to walk around and go everywhere, but because we have a Zoom audience, I'm going to try to plant myself right here. Yeah. But if you see me start to wander, just shout out, get back there. Okay. First off, I'm blown away at how many of you showed up on a Saturday to talk about getting old. Okay. And but here's a little thing about aging, is that we use this term incorrectly. I'm here to remind you, aging started on the delivery room table. Okay. The little baby that your grandkid, your great grandkid who is 6 months old is aging at the exact same rate as everybody in this room. Okay. And unfortunately, in our society, aging starts with an AARP card, and when we can't get up and down the stairs as well as we used to, and all of these other things. And aging is a beautiful thing. And this is the other thing that I want to point out is, ladies, when you go to the cosmetics counter and buy an anti-aging product, just really think about that word, okay? Anti-aging. That sounds to me like poison, right? Because if you're not aging, you're dead. Okay. And that's something else that we'll talk about today is we're all going to die, folks. And talking about it is not going to change one bit. But we're going to talk about a bunch of things today. But before I get started, I'm going to kind of share with you something that I've been doing for the last few years with presentations, because I realized that I would go to a conference and I would sign up to hear a speaker, and I'd sit in the room for 45 minutes. And, I came in, I had a question before I even heard the speaker talk. It's like, I'm coming to this conference or this talk because I want to learn something specifically about this. And I wait and I wait and I wait 45 minutes, and then they take 2 or 3 questions, and now it's time to go. And so what I've started doing, and you don't need to respond, but I just want to throw the invitation out there, is that if any of you came today to this discussion to get a question answered, or if there's something on your mind, feel free to throw it out right now, and I will do my best to address it either right now or at some point during my presentation. For those of you who are in the room, is there anything on your mind that you want to make sure that I address today? anything. And it's okay. I'm going to go over a lot of different topics with you today. But yeah.
Actually looking at options to explore as we age and continue to live in our communities. How can we be better accommodated in doing that? Not having a lot of individuals own their homes. A lot of individuals may need caregivers. So when we look at housing and what's going on in the markets today, how are we able to make our homes accessible? How are we able to stay in place with the proper caregiving? And how can we make it affordable or even to develop it in ways that we can continue to do all those things at home, maybe with people who care more for us than paying somebody to do that, but maybe give them a room to live.
I love it. You didn't show her my presentation before. Okay. And for those of you who are online listening, basically the question was related to planning for the future, whether it be aging in place. You threw in a bunch of affordability aspects into that. I love it. And that is what I'm going to be talking about. Okay.
I would like, when I started and found out about it, the Agency on Aging, and I'm not taking over your thing.
Oh,
but
no.
I copied their list, and I highlighted the elder care locator number because a lot of people come here to work for the government.
Yep.
And government changes, and we here at Lomax have had at least 4 families that use the elder care locator number to deal with their relatives in other parts of the country. So that needs to come out.
Absolutely. And I do talk.
That's
Okay. And what for the online audience, one thing that I'm going to talk about is that we don't need to walk the road alone. Like oftentimes with these decisions, we feel like we're the only ones doing it. Well, the fact that we've got this online audience and all you showed up here today, like you don't need to, this is a community and we're all concerned about something similar and we can help each other. But as you were saying, for the online audience, there's an amazing national resource that's free for all of us, and it's called the Area Agencies on Aging. There's an area agency on aging that serves every single county in the country, and it's my go-to first place to start whenever I'm trying to help somebody in Des Moines, Iowa, try to find adult daycare. I call the elder care locator number, 1-800-677-1116. I got it memorized. So, okay, we're going to talk about that too. Okay, good. So far, I'm on track that I'll get a couple of questions answered. But here's the thing, folks, throughout the day, if there's anything that I'm saying that prompts an idea or a question, just raise your hand and I'd love to make this more of a conversation than a college lecture. Okay, so let's get started here. And let me see. Yeah, I gotta click on it.
Can people put things in the chat?
Yeah, and it looks like we got a tech person back there. Ma'am, if anybody throws anything into chat, just raise your hand and I'd love to address that as well. Okay, so here's what I'm gonna this is kind of my game plan today. I'm gonna tell you a little bit about a fun project that I did that'll help you get to know me a little bit better and give you a little of my mindset. I'm going to talk about the overview of choices and resources, aging in place, making a move, and the resources that can help us do all that. And then I'm going to give you a few tips that I seem to sort of every week when people are calling me, they seem to be the main things that I repeat to everybody. And then open discussion, but really today's just talk is an open discussion. At any point you want to ask a question, you just jump on it. Now, I doubt this is gonna play. Oh, holy cow. Here, I'm gonna play it.
A new journey for Steve Gurney and his son Asa. It is one they likely will take in the coming years, but decided to get a taste of early.
Going through these experiences that are very positive, but there's a lot of anxiety.
Steve is 43 years old. Asa is 6. He likes to play with Pokemon cards. For the next 7 days, their home will be the residences at Thomas Circle in Northwest Washington. It's a retirement community.
I think it's absolutely wonderful. I think it's good for the youngsters, and it's good for us, too.
Steve founded the Guide to Retirement Living Sourcebook 20 years ago. He became known as an expert in senior living. But there was a problem.
What I realized last year was that I'm an expert in a field where I've never experienced it myself.
So he decided to take on an immersion project where he lives full-time with seniors.
You're 83 years old from your
Young.
experience, and you're 83 years young.
Yes,
Correct me,
I'm-
yes.
Residents like Mary Washington are excited to host the Gurneys. They suspect they can teach them a thing or two.
But I've learned a lot more from the people who live here now. They've been places I've never been. And that's very important, I think, to stimulate young people.
The goal of the project is for Gurney and his son to learn from the seniors who live here, but the residents say they expect to learn a few things as well.
How helpful it is to them, and can we help any more? Because it's really an educational program we're both involved with.
If experience is the best teacher, Steve Gurney hopes to show that the younger generation has willing and able resources to learn from.
When I look in the mirror, I don't see somebody with gray hair. When I see a picture of myself, I'm sort of like, wait, who is that guy? You know, because I feel the same that I did when I was 20 years old inside, you know, and that's one of the problems of why we, there's this, especially amongst people that are younger, you know, when they refer to us as an old man or an old lady, you know, it's like my kids are always, you know, busting my chops about how old I am. And it's like, I don't feel any different than I did when I was your age. You know, I mean, yeah, my bones feel a little bit different. I can't run as fast as I used to, but in any event, okay. I'm trying to find that. Let me just get started here. I don't need the PowerPoint right now, but here's a couple of things. There's a phrase that I hear every day of the week regarding all of this stuff that I'm going to talk about today, and it's never going to change. And that phrase is, I'm not ready yet. When I hand the book, that I'll go get more copies of it for y'all. When I hand this book out, the source book, and I hand it to somebody, most of the time they say, oh, son, that's nice, but I'm not ready for any of that stuff yet. And I understand this because, and actually it's really fitting that we're here in the AME church, because what this is about is it's about segregation. Okay. And hear me out. Okay. Oh, okay. We're dancing. And hear me out, is that one of the reasons why people don't want to move into the old folks' homes that I did that little project on is because right now, most of us are living in a neighborhood where black, white, young, old, gay, straight, single, married, divorced, all live together. And now we're telling folks that, hey, you got to go live with a bunch of old people, you know, and that's why when we take our moms and dads to tour these communities, that oftentimes they'll say, oh, I don't want to live with a bunch of old people, you know, and then the adult child will say, but mom, you're old. And it's like, mom knows she's old. Mom's older than somebody, and there's somebody older than mom in the world, but it's all about, we're used to living in a community where everybody lives together. And now all of a sudden we're saying, you've got to go live in an age segregated community. And now it's a different type of segregation, right? I mean, we're segregating because we're taking care of people and we're, you know, doing it that way. But my ultimate dream is that someday, you know, hopefully in my lifetime, that we'll begin to see models for caring for people of all ages and abilities that are integrated with the regular population. Okay, and I will, yeah.
Define old.
Yeah,
you'll see 55 plus community. You'll see different levels, and how do you define the age?
And that's the thing. And I hate this phrase because it's overused. Age is just a number, but it really is, because I mean, at the end of the day, like, you know, we all know a 25-year-old who might be in a wheelchair because of an accident, and we know an 85-year-old who's in a wheelchair. So to sort of, we don't want to, a lot of this is, yeah, eating right, exercising, taking care of ourselves is important. But we all know folks that have done all that stuff, and then, you know, they get dementia at age 60. You know, there's none of us have a crystal ball. And yes, there are some things that we can sort of assign to our age that, hey, there's a high probability that if you live this long, you know, you might have something like this happen. But the slide that I have up here is designed to help us change this focus. So today, what I want you all to think about is not about age, not about a number, but just living with meaning and purpose. Okay, because that's something that is age agnostic. Okay, we should be living with meaning and purpose our whole lives, our whole adult lives at least. And one of the challenges that we face as we navigate the chapters of life, and that number gets bigger, is that there is a probability that we may not be able to do some of the things that we used to be able to do. But how do we reinvent ourselves? How do we get the support to live with meaning and purpose? Now, this four-legged stool that I have on the screen, I actually created it after I did those moves into the retirement communities. And that was my second move when I went into residence at Thomas Circle. And it just so happened that my son, who's now 22, was on summer break, and I decided to take him with me. But I moved into 5 different communities and lived temporarily as a resident. And my goal was, as I said in that video, it's kind of funny that people look at me like a senior housing expert when I've never even spent the night in senior housing. Let me get a taste of what this is like. And I have to say, and I mean this, those were the best neighborhoods I have ever spent time in. Okay, and I'll give you a little glimpse why, and this is not an endorsement that we should all go move to these communities, but the thing that I will tell you, if you or your loved one ever has to move into a community like that, it's an amazing neighborhood, and because people are there that care about you, and in my suburban neighborhood, me and my neighbors, we just waved to each other, and you know, let me tell you, if I borrow my neighbor's leaf blower and it breaks, probably got the worst enemy in my life. It's not necessarily cooperative, okay? But I created this stool because so living with meaning and purpose is great when we're healthy and we're just going along in life. But if one or all 4 of the legs of the stool are weak, that's when we start saying, gosh, this is aging, you know? And one of the things that I found is the people that I was living with in these communities, they were all there because one or all 4 legs of the stool was weak, and moving into the community helped make them stronger and live them a more purposeful life. So let me just go real quickly through these. The first is getting around. I'm willing to bet that most of us here drove, and we live in a car-dependent neighborhood. And that's great, but if we can't drive or don't want to drive anymore, that can compromise our sense of purpose. It can make us more isolated because we're stuck at home. Our mobility, again, a lot of us probably live in Northern Virginia and live in, you look around this neighborhood here, and I'm willing to bet that there is hardly a first floor master bedroom anywhere. Most of our bedrooms are on the top floor. most of us have a few steps to get in and out of our house. If our mobility is compromised, that can impact our purpose. The next one, our personal village, that this is an example of a personal village. It's the people in our lives that could provide support to us. And what does that look like? And I'll talk a little bit more about that when we talk about aging in place. And last but not least, but the one that just breaks my heart is, because there's not a real easy solution to this, and that's cognitive health, is that if any of us, and out of curiosity, has anybody in the room had to be a caregiver to somebody with dementia or a cognitive issue? Yeah, it's just, there's a book out there called The 36-Hour Day, and it's, it's, you've got this loved one who's familiar when you look at them, but the way that they're acting, the way they're behaving is not familiar. And none of us have a crystal ball, no matter how great our diet is, how many studies we participate in, we might have cognitive changes that require people to help us. So here's how I see the world, and I'm going to walk you through these three buckets. The first bucket is aging in place, because that's what most of us want to do, okay? And then I'm going to talk about if aging in place is not the most suitable option for whatever reason, making a move and the options that are there. But then, to the point about the area agencies on aging, I'm going to talk about resources that can help us through both of those types of decisions. Now, let's start with aging in place. And I've got my little stool there because I'm going to sort of use this to kind of talk about, and let me just make sure my next, okay, good. Okay, so here's the first thing that I like to talk about when I talk about aging in place is, see, through the years, I've been doing this for 35 years, and most of the time when people talk about aging in place, they'll talk about, oh, you got to get grab bars in your bathroom, and you gotta know where to call a home care agency. Okay, that grab bars are awesome. I got a fun thing I'm going to share about grab bars. But what I'm going to talk, what I found out is that there's a different way of talking about aging in place, and this is how I bring it up. Is that who is going to unscrew and who's going to put in a new light bulb in the ceiling when it burns out? Now, if it's you doing it, just recognize, I mean, I'm 59 years old, and when I get up on the wobbly little stool to do that, I always feel like I'm going to fall, you know, but here's what's going on in houses all across America today is that the homeowner is sort of like, well, I can't call a general contractor. I can't call a handyman. You know, what am I going to do? And there is one funny solution. People get a kick out of this. Sometimes they order Domino's pizza. Okay. And they got a nice little $20 tip with them there. And the guy comes up to the door, and it's sort of like, oh, honey, can you come in and help me with a few things? Let's do the light bulbs. Let's move the couch. Let's do this, that, and the other. And that probably led to some really good relationships over the years. However, the group that has the most fraud committed against it is older adults. And you're really counting on that Domino's driver being trustworthy, because if not, he's going to go back and tell his buddies, there's this guy living alone, can't do his light bulb. Let's, and he likes me, you know, whatever. But I like using the light bulb because that's just an everyday example. And the alternatives to not, okay, so the alternatives is that, okay, I'm just gonna, it's okay. I don't need light in that room, you know, which now is a tripping hazard in and of itself. The kids are coming for Thanksgiving. I'll get them to do that then. So one time a year, you know, you get all these things done. But I think that's, you know, again, I like using the light bulb better than grab bars. The grab bars are important because it doesn't have that stigma of, you know, oh, geez, you know, do I really need, you know, wider doorways and this, that, and the other? I'm not ready for any of that stuff yet. So thinking about household maintenance and who can help. Now, the good news is that, like, for example, here in Northern Virginia, we're really fortunate. There's a group out there called the Shepherd Center that covers most of Northern Virginia, and it's volunteers helping neighbors. And a great example, I had a woman who attends some of our webinars, and she called me, and she needed some household maintenance done. She had gone through a couple of handyman. She wasn't very happy with it. I introduced her to the Shepherd Center. A volunteer came over, fixed her toilets, did some handyman device. I bumped into her and I said, "Hey, how did it go with the Shepherd Center?" "Oh, it was amazing. You know, Joe was great. We had a cup of coffee, this, that, and the other." I go, "Well, problem solved. You got your household maintenance thing, right?" She's like, "Oh, no, I don't really like accepting charity." And I was like, "What?" I go, like, because she was paying $300 for the handyman to come out and do things. She goes, "I don't like accepting charity." I go, "Well, you don't need to accept charity. There's two things you can do. You can volunteer yourself. Like, so get out there and volunteer at Shepherd Center for things that you like to do. And number two, it's a nonprofit. They would love for you to make a donation. So you don't need to donate $300, but you could donate $50 and that helps you." And she goes, "Oh, I didn't think of it that way." So the Shepherd Center, there are, you know, you got a senior ministry here. You can create even like an informal Shepherd Center amongst the members of the congregation where, "Hey, is there something you like to do?" Or if you need help, you know, there's probably folks here for the household maintenance and things like that. So now let's talk about the first leg of the stool. So we're aging in place, but but we're living in a suburban area, and maybe it's, you need a drive, you got somebody that you know that needs a ride to their doctor's appointment, or maybe I don't like driving at night, you know, it could be something like that. There are volunteer, like the Shepherd Center and NV Rides are programs out there. You know, if you, wherever you are at listening to this, you can just Google volunteer ride programs. They're out there. Okay. But there's a couple of real cool ones that people don't realize. So the other kind of neat thing is that statistics have said people don't like taxi cabs pulling up in front of their house, because it's sort of like, "Oh, look at her. She can't drive anymore. She's got to take a taxi everywhere." The beauty is Uber and Lyft, you know, it looks like a friend is coming to pick you up now. The problem with Uber and Lyft is this thing. Okay. I don't care how good you are at navigating a cell phone. It's very frustrating for me to try to get an Uber and Lyft ride. And if the driver's not there, I can't call anybody and talk to them. There's a program out there called GoGo Grandparents, and you could literally call to get an Uber and Lyft ride with a rotary telephone. It's people subscribe to it, and then they put the rides together. They match the rider up with a driver that wants to work with older adults, and oftentimes they'll wait or accompany somebody up to the doctor's office even. So there's a lot of changes going on in the getting around space as well. No, that's not volunteer. This is paid. Okay. Yeah, I'm talking about I'm talking about paid programs now. And what you'll kind of hear me say today is, when we talk about like building our personal village, like, I want y'all to try to tap into as many free or community support things as possible, because the more things that we do like that, the more it stretches our dollar. And how many folks in the room have children? Like, okay, a lot of you. Okay. When I was raising my kids, I wasn't writing a check every time I needed a babysitter. You know, I did it sometimes, but I had this personal village. You know, it might be a neighbor, it might be a relative, it might be a friend of a friend who's watching my kids. But every now and then you're in a crisis, and it's sort of like, okay, we got to hire Johnny down the street or Jane down the street to watch the kids, and then I write the check. And I want you to think of this phase in life as similar, okay? Is that if we need help, there are paid providers, which I'm going to describe to you, that are out there. But if we can use nonprofits, volunteers, friends and neighbors, that's going to stretch our dollars longer. And this is sort of going back to your first question about how do we create an affordable environment for ourselves and our loved ones? It's that support. Now, I will tell you, kids, building the personal village around kids is really easy, you know, because it's sort of like you're going down the street with your kid and everybody's sort of like, oh, if you ever need a babysitter, if you ever need somebody to help, I'm there. Oh, I love kids, this, that, and the other. It's a lot harder when we're talking about our own care that we don't know that we might need, and sort of cultivating that community. And I'll talk a little bit about that. In fact, I'll kind of make that my last leg of the stool, and I'm going to talk about building our personal village. Okay, the next leg of the stool is our mobility. Like I said, getting up and down the stairs in our home. And I want to introduce you to a concept of universal design. And oh, by the way, everything I'm talking about is in the source book, and I'll go get more copies before I'm done. Oh, you got some.
We'll take yours too.
Oh, okay, good. But universal design, and on here on the screen, it says safe and accessible home. And so there is a whole profession around this. And this is where the grab bars come into play. Most of the time when we think about safe and accessible homes, the first thing people say is grab bars and wheelchair ramps and, accessible entryways. But I want you to sort of think a little bigger. I'll try to introduce some bigger picture ideas. Number one, as I was saying, lighting plays an exceptional role in a safe and accessible home. And a lot of times, I don't know about you all, but me and my wife, we decorated our house, back in 20 years ago, and we haven't made any changes since then. Meanwhile, I'm getting blinder and blinder by the day, and the mood lighting in the rooms that I could safely navigate into is now becoming a little bit more dangerous. I find I have to turn on every light and turn on the light on my phone to see something. And so, taking an inventory of our home, yes, there are expensive remodeling things that we can do to make our homes more accessible, but some of the things that are very affordable is just more light bulbs, better light bulbs. Even though we love that thick throw rug that's in the middle of the room, it's a tripping hazard. So, pull that up and maybe, hey, let's put wood floors in. It's been a while since we've done a remodeling job. There are things that we can do, but there's some exciting things that people like it when I talk about these. I didn't have pictures of them today, but for example, there are kitchen cabinets that literally you can press a button and they come down to your level where you can actually use that top shelf of the kitchen cabinet. And if you look at the way homes are being designed now, they don't put kitchen cabinets up there anymore because they realize it's just stuff that we cram stuff up there and it never gets used, and so they're designing it now where everything's down at floor level. There's this German company that not only will the cabinets go up and down, but the whole countertop will go up and down, so that if you're living with somebody with a wheelchair, they can actually roll over, drop it down, cook their own meal instead of having to have somebody do it for them. The bathroom is a source of falls, that's why grab bars are so important. And this is really interesting. I'll give you all my website, but I interviewed a guy a couple of weeks ago who he is comparing grab bars in our bathroom to seat belts in our car. And I was blown away at what he was comparing. We all remember Ralph Nader. He wrote that book, Unsafe at Any Speed. Back in the day, people were dying like crazy in cars, and the auto manufacturing was blaming it on the drivers, not the cars, okay? And Ralph Nader basically said, no, these are unsafe. And then fortunately, the auto manufacturing industries, just without the government telling them, started putting seatbelts in, started making safer environments for the cars. And what he wants to see happen is that the same thing happens to our homes, because there's lots of stuff in our homes that are dangerous, not just for somebody who's older or has a mobility issue, but for all of us. Like, think about how many times you've like missed that one step at the bottom of at the bottom of your staircase. And did you know that like there should be 2 railings on every flight of stairs, no matter where they are, like 2, one on either side. But for 3 steps, you don't need any railings whatsoever, which, you know, is not safe. It's not safe for anyone. It's not safe for a little 5-year-old who's learning how to walk either. So there's lots of cool stuff, and there's contractors and professionals. This is a great way to utilize occupational therapist is looking at our homes and helping us with a plan. Let's see. Okay, the next thing is cognitive health. I mean, I told you my heart breaks. I talk to so many families who are caring for loved ones with dementia. But if you're aging in place and you're caring for somebody who has dementia, one great thing to know about is adult daycare. And I am telling you, I didn't know how important adult daycare was until the pandemic struck, okay? Because they had to shut down every adult daycare in this country. And there was a lot of problems when that happened, because what adult daycare does is it primarily, not exclusively, but primarily adult daycare serves people with some form of cognitive impairment, so that during the day, you know, the family can have dad, you know, go to adult daycare. He's being engaged, he's being occupied by trained professionals and other folks in a stimulating, purposeful environment. They pick him up at the end of the day, he's totally worn out, you know, the chance of him wandering at night is reduced. But more importantly, the caregiver gets a break, whether it be 5 days a week or just 1 day a week. So that's great for cognitive health. Okay, so let me see. Okay, so then there's home care that obviously can be hired. So let's say that somebody is, you know, aging in place, they have a fall, they go to the hospital, bust up a hip, and the doctor will say, well, you can go to a nursing home or you can do your rehab at home. 99% of us say, I want to go home. And you can have rehab, you can have home care, you can have just simple companionship. All this stuff can be provided at home. But I like using this as an example, because remember I told y'all, the phrase I hear most is, I'm not ready yet. So like if I say to somebody, it's like, hey, you know, you should evaluate, you want to age in place? Well, you should evaluate your home. Make sure that it's safe and accessible, you know, this, that, and the other. Oh, I'm not ready for any of that stuff yet. I'm going out to play pickleball today, you know? Well, then they fall in the pickleball court. They're in the hospital. Now, guess when they want to start doing this remodeling? It's like on the drive back from the hospital, okay? And so hopefully that fun example sort of just, we don't all have to go out and create wheelchair ramps overnight, but just thinking about this environment, what would happen if I was here for rehab? Where would I stay? And there's a cool concept called flex suites. And what that is, it might be like in your home, there's a little den or an office on the first floor that's more accessible. It's okay to keep that as a den, but maybe installing like a shower or something like that there, so that if it needed to be a place where we were staying, that it could function. Okay, and then the other thing is, you know, we see a lot of technology out there in the homes, and it's not necessarily marketed to older adults, but it can really help all of us. And so I'll use Alexa as an example. And I know some people have strong opinions about Alexa listening in, but I'll share a story of somebody who, you know, contact that I had, or somebody that I heard at a conference, was talking about how the family was really concerned about mom because she had severe macular degeneration. It was becoming very unsafe for her to live at home. And they're like, Mom, you got to go to an assisted living. No, I'm never going to move to one of those places. You know, we've all heard that. And so one of the brothers got the brilliant idea. He went out and he bought an Alexa. I think he bought a dozen Alexas for her house. They were everywhere. And so she would wake up in the morning, Alexa, what's the weather like today? Alexa, you know, read me the news. Alexa, New York Times, you know, Alexa, play my favorite song. And then as she'd walk through the house, she'd call out for Alexa, and she knew where, you know, she was. And but the thing that he said that mom loved about this more than anything is mom really felt like a burden on the kids because she always had to have them do her grocery shopping. And now as she goes through, she could just say, Alexa, add toilet paper to my shopping list. Alexa, add macaroni and cheese. And then Alexa, buy the shopping list and schedule delivery. And all of that could happen, and she never had to bother her kids. Now, he did say she actually bothers us more now because she doesn't need to dial her phone. She just says, Alexa, call my son. And then no matter where she goes, she's walking around the house. But this technology can help us age in place more safe and accessible as well. Okay, let's see. I'll talk about the personal village in more detail. I want to get through some of these things. So let's pretend that you're helping somebody and you've exhausted all the aging in place solutions. And it's sort of like, you know what? I think I am ready to make a move. This 4-bedroom house, it's going to cost me a fortune to make it accessible. So I'm ready to make a move. So now what I'm going to talk about are the different places where we can move. And the first one, you've never heard of this before. It's called Smart Lifestyle Community. And because I made up that name, okay? And I'll tell you why I made up that name is that over the years in doing the source book, so many times I would have a conversation with people that say, I'm not ready for any of these things yet. Or one of my best things was I had, it was a family in Arlington. They said, Steve, we went and visited every one of the CCRC Life Plan communities, but they're all missing one thing. And I said, what's that? She goes, trick-or-treaters. And she goes, me and my husband like seeing the trick-or-treaters. We like seeing the kids walk into the elementary school. I know all these places have kids coming in, but we like living in the heart of the neighborhood. And, you know, the thing that I said about segregation early on in my talk, that was really where the light bulb went off to me. Like when she said that about trick-or-treaters and just seeing the kids, I was like, you know, she's got a really valid point there. Now, so one of the things when people were talking to me about, hey, I just don't want to move to the old folks home, I began to suggest, well, see, are there places in your community where you could live and get a lot of the benefits of living in the community? So for example, like here we are, we're steps away from Shirlington. Shirlington is a great example. Because there are, I believe, right over here, there's a few apartment buildings, you know, that are walking distance to the restaurants, and hopefully there's a grocery store. A grocery store is the most important thing. Like if you're thinking about a smart lifestyle community, because what's funny is the retirement communities will tell you 5 miles away from Fairfax Hospital. It's like, I don't care how close I am to a hospital. I hope I never go there. But a grocery store is a place we could go every day. And just imagine if we could walk down to the bottom level of our apartment building and go to the grocery store, we don't need to get in the car anymore. And we get to see people. Grocery stores are like community centers as well. So, you know, when I say smart lifestyle community, think about places where you might not be as dependent on a car, that, you know, are low maintenance, like an apartment building and close to a grocery store and some amenities. And it's not age segregated. You're there in, you know, in the community. So I bring those up. Now, how do you find these places? Well, you can contact a realtor. Realtors are oftentimes helpful. There's a website called WalkScore, which is kind of cool. You can like type in Alexandria and it'll show you the neighborhoods that have high walk scores. And so those are a couple of ways to do that. So now we're going to move into the age restricted or the senior living options. And the first category is called active adult. And some of you have been around the DC area long enough to know about Leisure World. It's in Maryland. Like that's an example of an active adult community, but there's active adult communities all over this region. My in-laws used to live in Heritage Hunt. It's out in Gainesville. Now, most of these active adult communities are like gated communities with condos and single family homes. They don't have any health care provided, but they've got lots of clubs and lots of activities. So, and the most famous active adult community is the Villages in Florida. Okay. It's 55 plus community. And they say it's like basically a fraternity party around the clock down there. But anyways, but these are great places. They're for, just low maintenance, active lifestyle. But if any of the stool changes occur, you're in the same exact boat that you would be in if you were living in a single family home. Now, an interesting thing is any of these communities, you go visit them, what you'll see right outside their doorsteps is usually an assisted living and a nursing home and a couple of things like that, because they know, hey, a portion of these residents might need extra help. And, now they can still be close to the friends that they developed in the community. Most active adult communities are purchases so that you would be like buying a home or a condo. But fortunately, what we're seeing is a growth in active adult rental communities. Not many here yet in the DC area, but they're popping up. Okay, the next level of care is independent living. And independent living is basically rental apartments for older adults. Now, these come in all different shapes and sizes. They can be, really luxurious, and you got a limousine that takes you to your doctor's appointment, and it can be subsidized. And, Section 8 has a lot of independent living communities. Some of the communities have activities and meals, others don't have any. So there's all shapes and sizes. Important thing, though, is that if you know somebody that might qualify for affordable independent living, the important thing is getting on the waiting list as soon as possible, way before you think you need this type of option. I live in Reston. We have two amazing affordable communities out there, Lake Ann Fellowship House and Hunters Woods Fellowship House. But, it could take 3 years for your name to pop up on the waiting list. So it's sort of like, hey, in the future, I see this, or mom, let's get you on the list now. The next category of housing, you got independent living. Next is assisted living. Assisted living is designed for people that aren't capable of living independently, but don't need the level of care that's in a nursing home. Something that I didn't tell y'all is that how I got into this business was my grandfather had a stroke and needed to go to the nursing home. And I'm native here from Arlington. He was at Manor Care Arlington, right off Carlin Springs Road. And but back then, 35 plus years ago, there were people that today live in assisted living in a more residential environment that were there in the nursing home. And this is one of the reasons why we have a bad view of nursing homes, because we have that relative that it's like, oh, it's so sad that Uncle Jim is here with all these people that are bedridden or in wheelchairs. But the cool thing about assisted living is it's more of a residential, it's more of a home-like environment than more of an institutional-based nursing home. Again, assisted living comes in all shapes and sizes. You might have an assisted living community in your neighborhood and you don't even know about it. There are assisted living communities that are in single family homes where like anywhere from 4 to 8 residents live together. And then there's the larger communities that you drive by all the time. Again, pricing and cost is a big issue here. Unfortunately, Medicare and Medicaid don't pay for assisted living. In some states, there's a Medicaid waiver in assisted living, but that list is oftentimes so long that there's no end in sight. There are some more affordable options that are out there, but it's important to, get out there and search around for those. Now, a subset of assisted living that didn't exist 35 years ago when my grandfather was in the nursing home is memory care, because so many people have dementia. And the memory care communities are basically assisted living communities for people with dementia. They generally have very small neighborhoods, trained caregivers, and they're secure so that a person can't just wander off. And then the next category, the next to last one, is nursing and rehab centers. I know I was sort of speaking about the negative aspects of nursing and rehab centers, but the positive aspect is that these are now most of us will not go to a nursing home and live for 3 years. We're going into a nursing home for short stay rehabilitation, and we might be there with the kid that was the 25-year-old that was in the car accident. So more and more, with the growth of assisted living, with the growth of home care, more and more nursing homes are places of short stay rehabilitation where we get better. It's covered by Medicare. We get better, then we go home, or we go to a assisted living community. And now the last category that I'm going to talk about is life plan or continuing care retirement communities. What these communities do is it takes independent, assisted, and nursing, puts it all together on one campus. The concept is that somebody will move in and be cared for through their entire lifetime. Now, this is a great option, okay? But this is the one that you hear everybody talking about, where it's like, oh, my friend moved to this community and it had a large entry fee and, monthly fee and all that. Here locally, we've got Goodwin House, Green Spring. These are the Jefferson. These are examples of continuing care life plan communities. Basically, what's going on here with some of these, and they're all a little bit different, but everybody always asks, what's the deal with the entry fee? It's sort of like an insurance policy. So instead of paying a monthly insurance premium for 20 years, the entry fee is kind of like you're paying a premium right up front. And what that's doing is it's keeping your independent assisted and nursing at a more consistent, lower cost level than if you were out needing these services and not living on the campus. Okay. All right. So here's my I'm going to go through 5 tips. Okay. And then we can do open discussion and oh, wow, I'm already at an hour. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. Okay. All right. Here's my first one. Think like a college kid. Okay. So if you are taking somebody to one of these senior communities and mom is saying, no, not ready. Why are you taking me here? Or if you're going yourself, it's like, okay, I heard Gurney talk. I'm going to go to one of these old folks' homes or whatever. What I always tell people is I want you to pretend that you're going to look at the next college that you're going to. And here's why. I don't know if you all remember, if you're taking your kids or grandkids to a college, they don't care about the square footage of their dorm room, the fact that it doesn't have granite countertops. They're looking at one thing. Do I want to party with these kids for the next 4 years? Okay. And then they look at mom and dad and it's like, how are we going to pay for this? Okay. It's just like going to a retirement community. It's not rational. The problem is we're being too rational about this. It's like, look at these old people, I can't afford this, all that. And, but so think about it from that perspective. It's the students, the residents that are there, are they interesting? Are they people that you would want to be around? And one of the tips that I give to folks is it's sort of when let's say that you're scheduling time for your mom to go see an assisted living, make a list of everything she's interested in and everything she was interested in, and give that to the marketing people and say, hey, look, we're coming for a tour. And if you wouldn't mind, I'd love it if you could introduce my mom to a few people that are have common interests. Great story that I love to tell on this topic that might get your juices going is that there was a woman, an adult child called me. She goes, man, my mom cannot live at home anymore. It is just unsafe. And she doesn't like any of the caregivers that we've been hiring. She doesn't want any strangers in her house, but she refuses to go to the communities. And I took her to 3 communities. She hates them all. And I said, you know, I'm sitting there and the daughter's in tears. And she said something to me. She goes, yeah, every time we leave, she says, I can't live in one of these places. I'm a college professor, you know? And I said, really, what did she teach in college? Theater arts. And so I said, listen, try this. Call those 3 places back. Let them know that your mom was a theater arts professional. Is there any way that they could link up with the high school theater program or the kids or something like that, and, you know, create something that your mom might be interested in? And what ended up happening was the first place she called, she goes, actually, I wish you had told me that when your mom came by. Tomorrow we have the high school comes over and they practice their lines with our residents. We'd love to have your mom. And so she told her mom, they really want you. They found out you're a college theater professor. And tomorrow they got this thing. And she couldn't pull her mom out of there. Her mom was upset now because they didn't have an apartment ready for her. And it was just that one little thing. And so, you know, and that's one of the things that I found, and kind of going back to what I said earlier, is like, trust me, I know that there's a lot of downsides to these types of communities, you know, but when I lived in these communities, I found the people there to be so interesting and so engaging, and they actually cared about me. Like, you know, like I said, as opposed to me and my neighbors, we just wave to each other now. Okay. So hopefully that's a little bit of a tip. Okay. The next tip that I want to give you is about our stuff. So by a show of hands, how many of you guys have stuff? Okay. Everybody, we all have stuff. And I don't care how organized your house is, you still don't know what to do with some of that stuff. Okay. And this is a problem because let's say that you decide, okay, that's it. I'm going to Shady Acres, or you know, this house is too much. You know, you go back, you look around and it's like, wow, I got so many memories here. I got all this stuff. What am I going to do with this? You know, what have you? So I want to introduce you to a topic that is, you can look this up, but it's a great topic. It's called Swedish death cleaning. Okay. And it's not hospice or anything like that. What it basically says is, we got all this stuff. Let's figure out where it's going to go while we're alive. And then we're doing everybody a great favor. Because so many times we say if we've got kids, we say, oh, this Hummel collection is going to be all yours, you know, and then you turn around and your daughter rolls her eyes. It's like, but then we pass away and it's sort of like, I can't get rid of mom's Hummel collection, you know. But meanwhile, we could have some conversations, take pictures. In the Hummel collection, the solution to that, it's a great one. Got this one from Matt Paxton, the host of the TV show Hoarders, is that if you've got a collection like this that's meaningful to you, is just say to your kids, look, does anybody want it? Number one, okay? And chances are they don't, okay? Then this collection meant a lot to me. I'd like you to pick out one of these to remember me by. That would make me feel better. You can put it on the mantle, you know? So now you got 100 products that you can put on eBay or throw away or do whatever, you know, make a art project out of it, you know? So look into this Swedish death cleaning. And I know I'm going to talk about this in a moment, but there's a whole profession out there called senior move managers that will help you go through this. There's a whole profession on organizing photos. There's a profession, you know, for just about anything now, so that downsizing and dealing with our stuff is not something that you're doing alone. Okay, the other thing that I want to mention, if you're helping somebody find a senior living community, is location and involvement. So like I hear I'm not ready yet every day. The other thing that I say, Steve, just tell me which place is best. I want my mom to move to the best place. And my response to that is the best place is the place that is literally a block away from you. Okay. And I don't care if you look at the Medicare ratings and it says that it's the worst nursing home in the state of Virginia. If it's a block away from you, you're going to get involved the same way that you did with your kids' education. You joined the PTA, you volunteered, you got to know the teachers, and that can help with making that the best environment for your mom. So often I talk to people who, were looking at, ratings or whatever, and they get their mom in a place that's 45 minutes away, and they basically only visit her, once a week if they're lucky. And they're sort of like, whoa, I got an hour and a half commute here. Mom, I only got 15 minutes for you, and they're out the door. If you're there every day, the staff knows you, you get to know the other families, the other residents, you feel better. And these staff, you guys hear it all over the place, is that they are overworked. This is not a job that any of us in this room would want to do. But imagine you're working on the weekend, taking care of 80 people that need your help. That's a hard job. But what we want is we want to make sure that mom or ourselves, that we got somebody looking out for us when there's 80 people and I'm pressing the button, So, okay, I think I got one or two more tips, and then I'm going to go. Oh, okay. This is one that I really want to talk about. I've been blown away by this one. I never knew that this term even existed 3 years ago. And then people started referring to themselves as solo. Hey, Steve, I'm solo and I don't have anybody for my healthcare power of attorney, or, and when I do webinars, if I do it on solo aging, I get twice as many people there. Now, here's the thing that I want you to think about with solo aging. I don't know if I mentioned, I got a wife and 2 kids. Here's something that I know. Me and my wife are not going to die on the same day at the same hour. One of us is going to outlive each other. In fact, one of us is probably going to be the caregiver to each other, which is going to put us in this solo position. And those 2 kids I've got, right now, I would not want them anywhere near me in a caregiving situation. But at the end of the day, I want that to be their choice, okay? And but yeah. And another thing too, it's like, listen, I know I was just busting my neighbor's chops about not caring about me, but I got blood. I feel closer to some of my neighbors than I do to some of my blood relatives, So the thing that's best for me and all of us to do, even if we've got a big family and a network, is just imagine a solo aging plan. It's sort of like, hey, if I'm on my own, how am I going to get that ride back from a medical appointment? Who's going to take care of me if I do get dementia? What is going to be my plan? And the exciting thing about this, as much as depressing as solo aging may sound, it's like, oh gosh. I mean, the term they used to use is elder orphans, which is really sad, okay? But solo aging is empowering. The best thing that I love about people that are open to saying I could be solo one day is that they're taking charge of their life. They're sort of willing and brave enough to say, I might be on my own. Let me map out a plan. So this is where the personal village comes into play. And what I tell people is it's sort of like you don't have to do this overnight, but just over the course of a year or two, you write down a list of everybody in your life, your neighbors, your friends here at the church, the dry cleaner that says hi to you all the time, and just write down this list and begin to sort of have conversations that can help you determine, who on this list could I count on if I needed some help. Now, I've learned kind of the hard way. I've been talking about this for a few years, and when I first started talking about it, I remember I had this woman. She goes, "Steve, I did the list, and I called up all my friends and none of them want to help me, you know, and I was like, okay, let's take a different approach. I said, look, I didn't mean it to do it that way. Here's how you do it. It's like you got your list and you call your friend and you're there at Starbucks or whatever, and you say something like, you know, I just wanted you to know that if you ever needed help, I'm here for you. And like you can set your line in the sand. It's like you can't count on me to drive because I don't like to drive myself, but I love cooking. And so if you ever feel like you can't make a meal or if anything happened to you, I am your cook. You let me know. I know your best recipes. Give me a recipe book. I'm going to start making them now. You know, like offer something to that friend or that neighbor. And if the response is sort of like, well, that's really nice, I will take you up on that. See you later. You know, the response that you're looking for is, wow, thank you. And I would love to help you too. And that might lead into more of a meaningful conversation. It doesn't need to be an ultimatum. And what we want to avoid is that ultimatum. Okay. Okay. Let me do my last slide and then we can do some questions. And this, again, I told you a little bit about this. We don't need to walk the road alone. We're all here today. We're doing this together. We're not alone. I mean, there's people in this room that we can help each other. But let me go through a few of the options. The first one is government programs. We talked about the Area Agency on Aging, the Elder Care Locator Number. These are amazing resources, and you don't have to live here. So like a lot of times when people are evaluating these decisions, they're sort of like, well, I like it here in DC, but I don't know anybody on my street anymore. And my brother lives in, you know, New York. Maybe I'll look into moving up there near him. And you could call the Area Agency on Aging in New York and get all the resources that I'm talking about today. The other thing that I want you all to know about are like healthcare specific resources, diagnosis, disease, what have you, hospice, hearing, vision, and healthcare. One of the best examples that I like to bring up is I moderated an event for people with Parkinson's, hundreds of people in the room with Parkinson's, and it was starting to get to the end of the day. And I was closing it out, and this woman raised her hand and she said, my husband has Parkinson's. He'd like to say a few words. And he got up and he started talking about how he got the diagnosis and now he does ballroom dancing and he, you know, eats a plant-based diet. And then somebody else raised their hand and this guy was into rock climbing and, you know, and this, that, and the other. And everybody in the room is shaking their heads. And the doctor that was speaking, he said something that I didn't understand earlier. He said, for a lot of you, when I give you the diagnosis that you've got Parkinson's, the first question out of your mouth is, does that mean that I'm going to die early? And he said, I think you will live longer if you do what we say. And what he meant by that was when they get the diagnosis of Parkinson's, they bring them into this community. And all of a sudden, they have a group of friends that have something in common. They're eating right. They're doing exercising, and all these guys that were doing ballroom dancing and rock climbing, I asked them, I said, what did you do before? It's like, oh, I sat on the couch and I watched football, you know, and I ate potato chips, you know. And so a lot of times there's community in a diagnosis that is horrible, you know, of other people. The other thing, nonprofits and faith-based, I love hearing that there's senior ministries in the churches. A lot of the stuff I'm talking about today, you guys, if you're not already mobilizing yourself, you can do that here at the church. And then there's a lot of professions that are out there that you might not know about. Elder law, the legal aspects, daily money managers. It's like bookkeeping and check writing, and senior move managers, as I told you about. One profession that I like to highlight is aging life care managers. These are kind of like having a quarterback for all of these types of decisions that we're talking about. And one of the things that we see a lot of solo agers thinking about now is they're developing relationships with aging life care managers right now while they're healthy. They get to know them. They have their records so that if something happened down the road, there's this trained medical social worker, nurse that can be your quarterback in the hospital or what have you. So that's it. I went over my time. You can tell I'm really passionate about this. I'm happy to hang out and answer questions either online or in person. But thank you. And looks like this was recorded, which I'm kind of scared to see what that looks like. But also I've got my contact info up there for the people that are here and get the copies of the source book. My number's at the bottom of every page. I've also got some business cards that I'll put here. Don't hesitate to call me. I love brainstorming and trying to help people find solutions. So any questions from the audience here? Yeah.
So a lot of the things that you suggested, they're great, but a great prohibitor of cost.
Yeah. Okay.
And what can you do about
Okay, so for the online audience, I'm glad you brought that up, is that I kind of tap danced around that with subsidies and stuff. So we're talking about cost, okay? And yeah, you know, most of these places that you drive by that are the new senior communities are expensive to anybody, okay? So let me give you some tips on cost. The most important thing to help save us money is that personal village, as I had said, is that finding a network of nonprofits, of community support that's out there. Because the way that we can stretch our dollars is to have some free low-cost volunteer that is supplementing that. So now we got to go into the paid services, okay? And so the first thing is, if you or your loved one I talk to a lot of people that through their employer, at some point, they bought a long-term care insurance policy. Now they need care and they forgot that they had it, okay? So doing an audit of your finances is really key as early as possible, okay? Looking into if you've got long-term care insurance. And basically, long-term care insurance was an insurance that people bought that might pay for some of the things that we're talking about. And that could stretch some of your dollars. So we want to tap into that if needed. The other thing is just having a good handle on your finances, because, and there's two reasons for this, is number one, if you or your loved one would qualify for subsidies, like I said, we want to get you on the waiting list for as many things as we can right now, so that when your name comes up, there's potential there that you can qualify for that. And then the other thing to kind of understand, and I'll do a quick overview of this, because this, when we talk about affordability, the other thing that I want to introduce before I get to that is, y'all remember the TV show The Golden Girls? Yeah. So I think The Golden Girls is sort of one solution that's out there that can help us with affordability and loneliness and isolation, is the idea of sharing services, maybe having a roommate or what have you. In fact, actually, one pretty cool story was there was a single man and a single woman that were out at the mailbox. They lived in a townhouse community over in Annandale, and they discovered that they were neighbors, but they were both looking into senior living communities, and they decided to shop around together. And they were both looking for a studio apartment they were on a budget, studio apartment, but maybe they could pick the same community. And the marketing person said, I've got a 2-bedroom, 2-bath apartment. Let me show you that. They were able to move in together, live in the 2-bedroom, 2-bath for less expensive than each of them just in a studio apartment alone. But, sharing homes, that could be a solution. The bottom line is, if we're on a budget, we got to be creative in this space. So now let me talk about something that oftentimes takes people by surprise when we talk about affordability is that, you know, we're paying into Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, all that. So everybody is sort of like, well, shoot, I can't believe that you're telling me I got to write a check to move into this place. It doesn't Medicare, Medicaid cover that. So let's talk about that. The first program is Medicaid. Medicaid is designed for people that are impoverished. That's down to about $2,000 in total assets. It's an amazing program, and let's just pray that the current administration doesn't mess anything up there, because this is really taking care of people that really need taken care of. But the key is that and this is why we got to look at our budget, because if, let's say that you know somebody that qualifies for Medicaid and needs a nursing home today, there might not necessarily be a Medicaid bed like where they want to live in this area. They might have to go out to Shenandoah or something. But if they had enough money so they could move in and spend down, and then they don't have to move out, Medicaid kicks in, that person's in a safe and accessible home. Now, Medicaid primarily just pays for nursing homes, and some home care programs are out there that are Medicaid as well. Then the next category is Medicare. Now, Medicare, I hope Medicare pays for all of our nursing home stays in the room if we go to a nursing home, but none of us can plan on that. It's because Medicare will pay for the nursing home when the doctor says you need a few weeks in the nursing home to get better, and he writes the prescription, and then Medicare pays for that. So that's great. We're not writing that out of our pocket. And again, some states have innovative programs that are starting to do more with Medicare and Medicaid, but oftentimes those lists can be kind of long. Now, there's a couple of cool programs that are out there, affordable Medicare programs. There's a program, and it's listed in the source book. It's called the GUIDE program. They created a new program that provides support for people that are caring for somebody with dementia that's covered on Medicare. That's kind of, that's nice. It's not, it's not much, but it's the fact that it's free, basically covered under Medicare, is great. Trying to think if there's any other things related to, so, we all see the reverse mortgage commercials that are out there. Reverse mortgage that's designed for somebody that is going to stay in the home, but they want income, and they ideally don't have other sources of income, but by taking the reverse mortgage, they can now stay in their home and receive support or care. Just talking to a good friend of mine whose dad passed away, and now they have to get out of the house because the bank owns the house, with a reverse mortgage. So that's something to consider. But if possible, getting advice, from a trusted financial professional to help guide you through that. So listen, I wish I had my magic wand. Hopefully I gave you some different ideas to answer your question. Take some creativity. Yeah.
Can you cover a little about what happens when you get ready or they're going to a place like a nursing home or somewhere, and they look back like 5 years?
Yeah. Okay. So the question was about, and this is called Medicaid look back. So people used to be able to give away all their money and qualify for Medicaid, and the government got really wise to that. And now they look back at, the transactions that you've made over the last 5 years or so. And it's best to just get there's lots of stuff online, that can give you guidance on this. But the most important thing to remember is that it's, if you're going to do planning for Medicaid, to talk to an attorney. Okay. And here's the thing, like a lot of times people will say, well, that's going to cost me, yeah, I don't know, $1,000, $2,000, I don't know how much it costs, but that's going to cost me money. Well, if you're planning, if you've got enough money to sort of plan for that Medicaid look back, then spending the extra dollars on the attorney is going to save you in the long run. And don't just hire the first attorney, talk to a couple. Here's the other thing. A lot of times, if you talk to 3 attorneys, you'll get so much free advice on those 3 phone calls. You might not have to hire any of them. They may just say, hey, look, just don't do anything. Call me if you ever go to a nursing home or something like that. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Oh, yeah. In the back, and then I'll get.
I'm glad you raised the point on that, because we do plan for retirement from a job. When do we start planning for that next move? And what people do you need to bring together? Of course, the physician, as you gave an example, they write the prescription. The attorney, he'll give that. So when do you want to do that? Because, it sounds good to make those moves.
Yeah.
But moving those people out of the home,
Oh, yeah.
they'll say,
No. And that's the thing. Like, here's the thing that I want. Great question. And I'm going to talk about a few things, then I'll get to you, ma'am. But so I'm thinking while I'm talking here, which is dangerous, but something that I haven't really talked to you all about is end of life planning. And what I'm going to do is sort of back up from end of life. And remember, all of us are going to die in this room. Okay. Like, you all know that. Okay. And me talking about it isn't going to change it. And it could happen anytime. Okay. But why I'm talking about that is when we're talking about bringing that team together, the first thing that I want you to be brave enough and open up enough is talk about end of life with the people in your lives, having conversations. Okay. I know most of the time you hear people talk about, hey, did you write your will? Did you do end of life documentation? Do you have an advanced care planning document? What I want you to think about is start having just normal conversations about, here's how I envision my end of life. This is what I want with the people that you love. There's something out there called a legacy letter or an ethical will. I didn't know about this until a few years ago. The person that introduced me to it, he calls them love letters. And what he started, and he basically just wrote, his brother died, and he wrote what he calls a love letter to his wife. And it was like what she means to him and how he sees the rest of his life going, and gave that to his wife, and she loved it. And then he did it for his kids. And then he said he wrote 60 of these letters to everybody in his life. And the interesting thing about that, if you start by thinking that way, now when you meet with an attorney to do your legal documentation, you don't need the attorney asking you a bunch of questions. You've really started reflecting on what the rest of your life means and who's meaningful in the life. So that's one thing I want you all to think about. Okay. And I know it's hard. Okay. But then there's those documentations. Okay. There's a will, that's for when you're gone. All you're doing there is just trying to minimize your kids fighting or your next door neighbor or whoever, because you gave them direction. There's an advanced directive. That is, if you need life-sustaining treatment, pull the plug or take heroic measures. And then there's a healthcare and a financial power of attorney. That's if you can't make financial or healthcare decisions, who's going to make those for you? Those documents there, nobody's going to keep those documents when we're gone. Like there's no value to that. But let me tell you, that legacy letter, or the legacy letter could be a recording of you talking to your family or what have you. So think about that. And so I'm kind of backing into your question. So now I got my end of life planning together. I've started having conversations with people, and I've started to think about what is my life going to look like between now and my end of life. And one of the things that I would also say to y'all is my four-legged stool. So like kind of go through that too in sort of planning your attack is that, okay, if I can't drive anymore, what does my life look like? You know, who's going to give me a ride? How is that going to go? If I can't get up and down the stairs anymore, what does that look like? You know, and if I, you know, don't have as many friends and connections in my neighborhood anymore, what does that look like? And then last but not least, if I have a cognitive impairment, what does that look like? And that may begin to help you sort of sort out like when and where. So for example, something that I hear a lot of adult children say to me that it just breaks my heart is that their mom or dad said, never move me into a place like, you know, and they fly into town from California because mom's got dementia. The police have been called 3 times because she wanders around, you know, and things like that. And the daughter is sort of like, mom told me never move her into a place. Well, if mom would have said something like, look, I want to stay here as long as I possibly can, but I understand if I get dementia, it might not be possible for me to you know, live here anymore. Like that gives the daughter a lot more freedom. So again, it's different for all of us. And this is the crazy thing is, I hope all of us in this room have the plan that I hope for myself. Gosh, I hope this happens. I hope on my 85th birthday, I go out and play some pickleball, have some shots with my best friends, and then I just fall asleep and I don't wake up. Okay. You know, but we all know that happens to some of us, you know, that some of us that happens to, but we all have friends. We know that there's some folks that, you know, have a decline, you know, and we got to just be brave enough to sort of have some conversations about what if, you know. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
We heard about him who had been living in a nursing home, but he ran out of money. And I'd like you to speak to that issue because that seems so threatening, so possible.
Yeah. Okay. So for the online audience, the question was, she saw something on the news and a man was living in a nursing home. He ran out of money and, you know, and they probably, you know, on the news, they've got his stuff and he's, you know, he can't live here anymore. Here's the important thing. And this is why we got to look at our finances, because that gentleman needed to be in a Medicaid nursing home. Okay. Now, what could have happened was, and I've heard these stories, he could have had $1 million in the bank when he moved into that nursing home. Nobody expected him to live, you know, more than 6 months. And 10, 15 years later, he's now impoverished and they're like, guy, we don't have Medicaid. But the important thing is, this happens less and less. It still happens every now and then. Most of the time, when somebody's in that situation, 2 or 3 years before they spend down, the nursing home administration is saying, okay, we got to find a Medicaid home. We're going to move you now while you still have 100,000 in the bank or 50,000 in the bank. You can pay for at least for 6 months and then you go on Medicaid. I think when we hear a news item like that, that's more, there could be some crazy family dynamics there, but that's more of the nursing home management that he was in not being responsible.
But it, I mean, that's a real situation.
Oh,
If you
yeah.
look at the average cost of a nursing home, and it varies. They have it like at $5,900 a month.
Oh, I think in this area, a nursing home is about $10,000 a month.
Oh.
And assisted living is like, you know, anywhere from 5 to 15,000. It's crazy, like how expensive this stuff is.
Well, let's say you're there.
Yeah.
And you only can, let's say $5,900 example.
Yeah.
You only can pay $3,000. What's there? Are they still trying to get to the Medicaid? Or
Yeah.
are there anything?
Oh.
Medicare move with the other people.
Yeah. So like, let's say the Medicaid works off of your assets, not necessarily your income. So like, let's say somebody's got $3,000 of Social Security. That's their only income coming in. and their savings account got down to $2,000, then Medicaid will pay, and the $3,000 from Social Security will, supplement that. But also the other thing is, I know this always is super scary, but like Medicaid, if you're married and let's say that my wife needs a nursing home and I'm totally healthy, and we can protect a portion of our assets, we can protect the home, so I don't need to leave, and my wife could apply and qualify for Medicaid, and I can still go on living and have some form of my assets as a protection. Yeah.
And you all have a home, because she needs to go into a nursing home, she can't be associated with a house.
Well, no, they recognize that if there's a couple, that would be unfair for us to have to liquidate the house or count the house as those assets. And so they have a calculation. There's a certain amount of money that I can have in my bank account and the home, and then my wife might qualify for Medicaid, and it's to protect the well spouse. Yeah. One thing that I might suggest is I'll talk to you all about having an elder law attorney come and speak to you, because I'm not an attorney. I'm just giving you broad strokes, but there's a couple of really good ones right here in Alexandria who could come and talk and really dive deeper into these topics. Yeah. And also any of the things I talked about, move management, Swedish death cleaning, all that stuff, like, to have follow-ups to, it's good that I presented a little bit on a lot of stuff. We could have somebody come back and talk a little bit more details. Any other questions? Yeah.
And the police apartments in Arlington County, they have something with the county to have seniors come there and live, but not at the top rate.
Yeah. And yeah, so this is programs like what she's talking about. And I'm going to repeat. So the question was, there are programs where older adults could live in high rises or apartments and not have to pay the top rate. And there are programs like that all around the country. They're different everywhere. I believe Fairfax County has a program like that, but the place to find out about that is through the Area Agency on Aging. So wherever you live, call the Area Agency on Aging. And what I would say is that exactly what the question you asked me. It's sort of like, hi, I was wondering, can you tell me about the subsidized, lower cost, more affordable living options for seniors in the county or in Northern Virginia? And more than likely, they'll be able to send you a list of places, or they'll put you on a waiting list. You'll have to fill out an application or what have you. The important thing, like I said before, for these affordable programs is just fill them out, get on the list, because you may or may not, it may be a while before somebody calls you. But one kind of cool thing, like, for example, I just saw in Fairfax, there's this brand new affordable senior community that's being built. Like, the good thing that makes me feel good is that for the independent living, there are some more affordable options that are being built. Yeah.
I just wanted to address that from an Arlington perspective, because what they're called is committed affordable units. But when Arlington negotiates with developers, they make arrangements that so many of those units would be affordable. And that's what allows you to go into like their units in Rockland and other buildings that they have built. And they have like 4 or 5 units that are committed affordable units. So when you hear Arlington talk about that, there's a lot of them all over, but they maintain a list where they actually have training sessions. So you get on that list And when they build a building, they notify those individuals. But there's also a mailing list that goes out now saying, we've got units available in whatever affordable apartments or places. That may be something there.
Yeah.
The second thing I wanted to do is announce that I'm putting together a workshop for Green Valley Day, which is gonna be the health fair. I'm doing the health fair this year with Virginia Hospital Center. So I just added a senior village, which I'm gonna invite Steve to, and some other resources, so we can continue these conversations. And certainly make them more culturally relevant to a lot of what some of our issues are. And that our seniors don't wanna leave home.
Mhm.
And they've got housing that they're concerned about what happens to it. So we're gonna put those resources all together and have it at Drew. It's September 20th, gonna be from 1 to 4. So anybody can get engaged. I'm looking for volunteers, those of you that wanna sign up to help plan it and host it. So more to come.
That's
But
great.
Green Valley Day is done by Green Valley Civic Association. So they'll be getting out with more info, but I'm gonna do the health fair portion.
That's great. And that's really good. In our area, you read about it in the newspaper, they build a new high rise and they always, like, the county government is saying, no, you can't build that luxury high rise unless you have some workplace housing in it. And the workplace is oftentimes synonymous with older adults would qualify for that as well. So that's great. Oh, another great local resource that's absolutely amazing is Culpeper Garden. It's right by Ballston Common. That's an affordable, independent and assisted community. And there is so few like affordable assisted living communities. That's a great one. And that's a great one to just get yourself on the list there and just volunteer. You know, it's kind of like you know, they're always looking for volunteers. It's a great place to go and get to know folks and give back to the community. And it maybe someday it could be a place where we're living too. All right. Holy cow, man. I thought I was going to talk for an hour today. I talked for an hour and 45 minutes. This is pretty crazy. Yeah. But I thank y'all, and I really feel free to reach out. I really enjoyed meeting with y'all today. All right.
This has been phenomenal. I didn't know, I expected it, but it exceeded my expectation. Thank you so much. And I thank you all for coming. We have these sessions because of what I learned taking care of my mother. And you mentioned